Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. And our program is about all things related to women and the women's experience. We will be talking about violence against women, opportunities for women in leadership and decision-making, where we are in terms of gender equity. We're going to be talking about everything in regards to women's walks of lives. And so we're really appreciative that you're here today. We also want to just acknowledge and thank our Indigenous and Aboriginal people for allowing us to share this space and to have these conversations here. So welcome. And I am really happy to introduce our guest today, Danielle. Danielle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so happy to have you here. Danielle, can you maybe provide a brief explanation of your role at the Women and Children's Shelter?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Danielle, and I am the outreach counselor with the Women and Children's Shelter. So I am part of the outreach team. So I provide supportive counseling to women in the community that are not having to stay in the shelter, but are living out in the community. Either they are maybe with partner and needing some support, and maybe that leads them into the shelter. And then once they leave the shelter, if they need ongoing counseling, it would be me that they would connect with.
Thank you for that, Danielle. And it's such an important role that you carry in the lives of women. Can you help us, our viewers, to understand really the deep complexity of the violence that women have experienced? Because, you know, a lot of folks may think that it's not happening in our community, that, women's violence and the issues for women, that we've come a long way. And rightly so, we have. But we know we have a long way to go. So help us to unpack what that violence still looks like for women in our community.
No, absolutely. So I think that there's still a belief that we can see violence, or we can see intimate partner violence. We will see a black eye, we'll see a bruise. We'll be able to tell if we come across a couple where intimate partner violence is present. But most of the violence that happens in intimate relationships is exactly that. It is intimate, and it happens behind closed doors. It's happening in isolation. So I would say that the initial barrier to work through is really breaking that isolation. And in that isolation is not only having access to services, but it goes deeper than that. It's about creating safe space for the woman to reach out and being able to connect with her and have her believe that she has the ability to reach out, that she's kind of deserving of reaching out. And it's a belief system that we're challenging. Women are in relationships. These women that we're working with have come into the relationships, and I've been here for 20 years. So really what I'll share is kind of, just my shared experience working with hundreds and hundreds of women over the years, is when they come into the relationship, they're looking for love and connection. And an abusive partner is not looking for love and connection. An abusive partner is looking for power and control. So you really have a deep clash of two completely different belief systems. And in order for the person that is not abusive, remembering that we're not just speaking about women in intimate partner violent relationships, but she's coming in and this is what she's trying to navigate. She's looking for love and connection, and he's looking for power and control. And it's all of the different methods that he uses, or the abusive partner uses, to gain and maintain power and control in that relationship. And those are the pieces that aren't seen by the public.
And I want to just get some clarity on something that you've said, because I think it's helpful for our viewers. And you did make the clarification that, yes, there is an overwhelming amount of violence happens towards and against women. And we know that. And that the majority of that violence is at the hands of male abusers. But you did clarify that. And I think it's a very important part for us to acknowledge that in any intimate partner relationship, that it can also be women experiencing violence from other women.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have worked with many women who have been in same-sex relationships, or folks that represent a process in the LGBTQ2S community. And what's brilliant about our shelter services is that we are all inclusive. So what I love about doing something like this is that we're helping to break that isolation also of those of other groups that have additional barriers to the women we've been seeing previous, and hopefully creating some safe space or a safe place for them to reach out to.
And I think that the point that you made, I mean, you talked a little bit about different types of violence. And yes, we can see women who have bruises and strangle marks on their neck. Can you talk a little bit about the long process of working through the violence that they've experienced? And you know, bruises heal, marks will fade. But what is the internal scars that exist for women who've experienced violence?
Yeah, so absolutely. And I would say again, over my 20 years, the majority of women that come to shelter services, whether it's through outreach or within the shelter, are not coming through the doors with visible signs of violence. They may share that they've experienced violence in their relationship, but not all have. It is the emotional abuse, the mental abuse, the spiritual abuse, the economic abuse. It's, again, all of those hidden ways that abusive partners use to gain and maintain power and control. And a big blanket is overriding all of the forms of abuse is isolation. If he can keep his partner, if the abusive individual can keep their partner isolated, then whatever he believes, she begins to believe herself. So it is those deep-seated beliefs about herself that she perhaps had some coming into the relationship. Certainly we can't negate our life before our intimate relationship. So we have beliefs about ourselves when we enter into relationship. And an abusive partner will learn. There's a kind of a grooming process, if I can use that, kind of that terminology of the abuser finding out where are the spaces that this person feels weak, where are the spaces that this person feels vulnerable, and how can I use those spaces to gain and maintain power and control. And from the person coming into the relationship, they will see that grooming process as love and connection, because that is how it's disguised. It's disguised as questions about, well, what's happened in your past? What was your dad like? What was your mom like? What kind of supports do you have in your family and friendships now? And the feeling is they want to get to know me. They're looking for this connection, when unbeknownst, they're looking to gain and maintain power and control. So the more information that they can learn about what connections you have or don't have, what strengths you have, more so what weaknesses you have, then that's what they can focus on and build upon that to take away even more, create more isolation for the abused or for the victim in the relationship.
And I think that isolation is very key when we think about the current climate that we're in of COVID. And, can you speak to what that has meant to further isolate women with their abusive partners?
Absolutely. So our services also have been impacted. Of course, our shelter services are still open, residential services, but our outreach services, as I'm here from home. So I'm no longer meeting women in the community, which provides some safety. Women say they're going grocery shopping or going for a walk. We could meet somewhere if need be. So now for women that are still living with their abusive partners, or for individuals still living with an abusive partner. So now it means being a lot more creative. I have spoken to folks in their washrooms at home, or partner, the abuser has left the home to go and do something, and they've got a short window of time. Folks that are in intimate partner relationships experiencing intimate violence and in their relationships are also incredibly brilliant and resilient. I really want to say that they can find a way, and they do find a way. And I'm constantly kind of humbled over my 20 years at the brilliance of folks that are navigating these relationships. We often focus on the strength that it takes someone to leave. And of course it does. It takes incredible strength, tenacity, and courage to leave. It also takes a lot of strength and courage and tenacity to stay.
You know what? Thank you so much for that, Danielle. And I think certainly, for your counseling service, and then also the broader perspective from our agency, is that women have been more isolated, certainly with COVID. And we've seen a dramatic increase in the intensity of calls to our crisis line. So, like you said, women are calling from their closet. They are calling from, a moment in time when their abusive partner leaves to go to work, that they can call our crisis line and speak to somebody because they have very few moments to actually be able to reach out and get help. And COVID has placed an enormous strain on an already volatile relationship. And we know that you take a stressful existence, a stressful situation, and you add other factors to it, it becomes that much more increased. And we have definitely seen that with COVID for sure. So I'm really appreciative of our discussion, and I want to circle back to it and dive in a little bit deeper about the work that you do and really the experiences that women are sharing with you. So we are going to take a very quick break, and we will be back with you shortly. Welcome back, and we are talking with Danielle from the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. And Danielle provides outreach counseling to women who experience violence. And before the break, Danielle, we were really starting to talk about what does the violence that women are experiencing look like. And, we have this understanding and acknowledgement that folks in the community may not know that women are being abused. Help us to understand the examples that you're hearing from women about the abuse they've lived in. What does it actually look like?
Well, as I had said before about kind of the hidden violence, we think of violence as being bruises or something that we can we can see. But the majority of women that are coming to me, it is the hidden abuse. So it is what is happening in isolation. So it is the threats. It is using of children, which is something we haven't touched on yet. Of course, in our title, we are Women and Children's Shelter. As much as I support one-on-one counseling just to women, certainly a large majority of the women that I speak with do have children. And what happens to them if they leave is a huge barrier for women in leaving. So and now with COVID, there's a whole other dynamic happening with even with women that have separated. The abuse continues once the relationship has ended. For many, they think, well, she's left, that's it, it's over. There are many, especially if she has children, there are still connections that happen, and the abuse still continues if they're in the court process and there's shared custody. Especially with COVID, there are many women that are sharing with me that their partner is not abiding by the separation agreement, not allowing children to come back home, or not allowing children to have contact with mom. And because of the courts, of course, being much slower and chunks of time the courts were closed, women have gone for lengths of time without seeing their children, lengths of time without receiving support. And now in this time of COVID, also the housing crisis, which we were already in this community, it has become so much worse. Women leaving and thinking they could afford rent 12 months ago is not the case for many anymore. And if partners are also not paying support, and they're not able, the court systems aren't supporting them in receiving their support because they're so backed up, or when they've been closed, women are really stuck. And of course, they're able to come into shelter, but shelter is a temporary, it is while in crisis and not a place that they can live forever. So many women are connecting with me still with partner, as I said before, in their washrooms, or when partner has gone to get something, and what I'm doing is having conversations about safety planning. And for many women, their life is on hold, and it is just about navigating each day and keeping themselves and their children as safe as possible, because leaving isn't a possibility right now.
And I think you've highlighted something that is important as well for our viewers to understand, because, you know, we started off our conversation today talking about barriers. And of course, we all have barriers within us that will impede us and stop us from doing certain things. And making a decision to leave a violent relationship is no different. We may have a lack of confidence. We've had serious experiences of abuse that lead us not wanting to leave, because even within the abuse, there's a level of comfort. I know what I know. So there are internal barriers that women carry and bring. And you've talked about the external barriers that can also prevent a woman from being able to leave. A few years ago, we knew that every 6 days in Canada, a woman was killed by her intimate partner. Now that is more like every 3 days in Canada, a woman is killed by her intimate partner. And we also know that women are most at risk when they decide to leave. And I know that as a shelter person who's worked in this system for many years, that you have your own experience and awareness of women who have been killed, who have been murdered by their partners. And that is the reality of the women that you support. So, and I think, so there's internal barriers, the external barriers, of course, the increased risk of what could happen to a woman. But those exterior barriers are really difficult, I can imagine. And please speak more to it. When you think about housing, or if there's a need for mental health and addiction support, how does that impede a woman being able to move through the violence she's experienced when those external things are working against her?
So, and support is so important. So, as you said, our internal dialogue, whatever story she has about her own capabilities. Of course, partner is not doing anything to support her ability to believe she can. And if family and friends are what they're seeing of partner, often, again, not just the invisibility of emotional abuse, the name calling, the put downs that you can't see. Often partners are quite incredible in the community. I've worked with many women who their family said, "I don't understand why you're leaving him. He seems so great," and that they are quite amazing pillars in the community. But what happens behind closed doors is different. And that creates an additional barrier, because folks that should be supports or could be potential supports may not believe that this is really happening behind closed doors.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what societal values do you think are placed on women that also contribute to them feeling like they need to stay in that relationship?
Well, what I love about asking this is that I feel like this is a place where we as women or individuals in abusive relationships can find the knowing that we can make a change, because these societal beliefs are not only enforced by men or by abusers. We support them as well as women. The belief that we are multitaskers, for example, the belief that we need to present like everything is fine. I'm fine. I'm good. What's the matter? I can take all this on, and we can celebrate even within each other. What did you do today? And I list 170 things, and you say, good job, instead of, wow, did you take a breath today? Did you take some time for yourself? So we certainly, as women, as individuals, can challenge the societal belief of what we need to be doing and what we are capable of doing. And there's also, of course, the belief for men and women. For women, we should be nice, we should present kindly, we should be smiling, and we need to, if we're crying, we're too emotional. And of course, that's supported in different systems. Women that go through family court, for example, need to hold it in. And you talked about mental health as well. that we are in a world right now. I think society is wanting to break down the barriers and the stigma on mental health. However, it's still very much entrenched in our systems. So a woman who falls apart in court is not necessarily looked at as being capable. She's maybe too emotional or can't keep it together. Do you need a break because you seem too emotional? Well, we are talking about the loss, potentially of losing my children, or the future of my children. So of course, emotions are going to play a role. And for men, of course, the societal belief that men have it all together as well. And if they are to express an emotion, it's anger. And when we see a man angry, stomping his fists on a desk, we say, oh, he's really determined. He's just really charged. He's firing us up. You see a woman do this, she's hysterical, right? And again, those are beliefs that not only men support in men, or men support for women and women support in men, we support that in each other as in our gender roles. So I do think it's a response. That's something we can take on within ourselves. And when we work together as women, that is, certainly something I love to bring to the table for women, because we can empower ourselves and each other to be real, to see that our vulnerability, we are strong in our vulnerability. We can express sadness and fear and anger, and not just always, then joy just comes. We don't have to pretend.
And I want to ask your thoughts about something as well, Danielle. So, a lot of people will ask the question, why did she stay? And it is helpful for us to have dialogue and to educate our community about those factors that lead women to stay. And you talked about a lot of them. Her perception of her role in the family. She needs to be a good wife. He's really a good guy, even though he hits me. There's a lot of rationalizations, right? And from the society looking in, they're looking for those rationalizations as well. And I think in large part because they want to try and understand that. But how do we change the dialogue about asking the question, why didn't she just leave? Like, where do we start with that conversation to educate women, but also to educate the community?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think a great shift would be, why does he think it's okay to hit her? Instead of why does she stay? Why does she stay? Why does he think it's okay to treat her like garbage? Why does he think it's okay to threaten her? Why does he think it's okay to withhold her from using a phone, from having her own phone, from having her own bank account, from having access to the family vehicle, or having her own car if they have the funds? Why does he think that's okay to keep her isolated and keep her controlled? I would say those are the challenges that not only we as women need to challenge men or abusers, again, because we're not just talking only about gender-based violence, but also that men should ask other men. I think it's about men asking other men, why do you treat your partner like that? And challenge, and I know it's uncomfortable, right? Confrontation, confrontation is uncomfortable, but I think it's in the uncomfortable that change will happen. And I believe that there is this underlying desire in our community and our communities globally for this change to happen, but it's scary. Doing something different, challenging the social norms is scary. And I get it. As I get dry mouth now, just talking about it, I get how scary it is, because I'm in it. And I've been in it for 20 years and I still feel it here. So I can only imagine for folks that don't have this forum like I have today. It's scary, but we just need to do it.
And I think it is such a great conversation to have with you, because certainly, both of us, we have lots of opportunity to talk in the community. And frequently I am asked the question, well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't she stay? And it is so important, yes, to be able to understand the barriers that women experience that inform those decisions to stay or go, but also to redirect the question to understanding, why does abuse happen? What is at the core root of that? And so I just really, really appreciate the dialogue that we've had about that. And I know that you and I could talk for a very long time. And but before we leave today, I want to make sure if there is a woman in the community right now, our wonderful viewers, that has heard you speak today about the services that you provide and the work that you do, and really your philosophy to how you do that. If she's listening right now and she needs help, can you let our viewers know how they would get in contact with you, and what does that process look like?
Yeah, so absolutely. So my email address is all lowercase, Danielle@barrieshelter.com. It's DANIELLE @barrieshelter.com. And please know you can always call the crisis line. So my hours, I am Monday through Thursday from 8 until 5. But should your window of time that you're able to call be outside of those hours, you're welcome to email me, of course, at any time. That's 24/7. But if you need somebody on the other end, and it's 2 a.m, it's 4 a.m, you're more than welcome to call the crisis line at the shelter, and that's 705-728-2544. And even if your thoughts are, I'm not sure if my relationship is abusive, I don't even know if I would want to leave. If you just want to call to have an ear on the other end that's outside of family or friends, it stays with us. Whatever it is that you share stays with us when you leave. Please feel free to email me or call the crisis line.
Thank you very much, Danielle, for sharing that information. And we really do encourage any of our viewers today, if you need to reach out and you need to speak with someone, please just call our crisis line 24 hours a day, as Danielle mentioned. And we also encourage family members to call. And we do receive quite a lot of calls from family members saying, you know what, I know my daughter, my aunt, my mother is being abused, and I don't know what to do about it. There is help on the other line. So please just make that call and just know it's confidential. We are so thankful for you, Danielle, again, for coming and speaking with us today and with sharing your insight and your experience with the community. And thank you, our wonderful viewers. We are always open to your ideas about shows, and we really look forward to connecting again and really just continuing our conversation about the lives of women in the community. I'm Teresa MacLennan. Thank you again so much for being with us. Take care and stay well.